Hi again, everybody. Welcome to part 2 of my video on how to give my Hypercube a new paint job. And also, I will show you how to make your own Hypercube step by step. This was my original Hypercube, painted in bands. Each edge of each cube is painted in 3 different colors, showing the 3 different cubes that each edge is part of. And the challenge is to paint this in stripes instead of bands. So on each edge, instead of having 3 different colored bands, we'll have 3 different color stripes. And the theory is that in painting it that way, it'll be easier to pick out the cubes, the 8 cubes that make up the Hypercube. That was the challenge. It took me a long time to meet the challenge. I had made many attempts, most all of them failures. I tried different materials for making the edges. I tried different paint schemes. These edges are made of paper tubes that I made that are triangular in cross-section. But I finally figured out a method that is easy to do. You can do it, and I'll show you exactly how in the video. This is the final result. I made it a little smaller for a couple reasons. One is that's a little big, a little ungainly. I thought being smaller would be a little easier to handle. Plus, the material I chose to use for these edges is regular soda straws, paper straws you can buy in the store. And they happen to be 8 inches long or a little short. So I just cut each one in half, and that way I got 2 edges out of each straw. And then I hooked 32 of these together to make a Hypercube. I'll show you how to do that. And I painted it according to the suggestion that I got in a YouTube comment. I'm not sure this is really what you're looking for, but this is what we got. Now we're going to get into the method of construction, and you can watch me actually build this from a bunch of straws to what it is now. The critical part in putting this together is getting the angles right. And there are only 5 angles to get right. If you take any vertex, those 5 angles appear. And they're all the same. They just are in different sequences. So to get the angles established, I'll show you how to make this angular gauge. And in that gauge you can take 4 of these straws, the edges, stick it in there. Now I lost my... And it will align to the correct angle exactly. And you can glue them together with hot glue, and then they stick. Now once you have this set, then forming the rest of the Hypercube, you use all of these as a gauge. So this one would go like this, and it has to be exactly parallel and in the same plane as this one and this one, in the same plane as these 2, parallel to this one, and so on. And there'll be one like this that would be parallel to this, and there'll be one like this that will be parallel to this. And so for each one of these, you glue on 3 straws at the proper angles, and they'll all meet and form this Hypercube. We'll go into detail on that, but I wanted to show you this gauge. This was the first gauge I made, and the problem with this gauge is that, but the problem is it isn't rigid. This can deform by these dihedral angles changing. So to fix that, I put a stiffener to hold it at the correct dihedral angle. We're now ready to show you how to make your own hypercube. And I think this method is easy enough so that anybody can make it if you have just a little bit of skill in drawing and cutting and pasting and that kind of stuff. Means we just need 16 of these paper straws. We cut each one in half. We get 32. Those will be our edges. And the nice thing about these, they're cheap, easy to use, and they take paint nicely, and they take hot glue very nicely, which is not true of some other edges I tried. So for equipment, you'll need a hot glue gun. When you're done, you'll need to paint them, so you need a set of paints. Acrylic paint covers those straws really nice. This I've found is the best tool for trimming the flash or the hot glue that runs out that you want to trim off, like toenails. It's maybe a little overkill, but it really works well. Regular scissors kind of works, and you can use other tools, but I recommend this. What I'm going to recommend is that you just copy my angles. They work, and if you copy them, they should work for you. Otherwise, you'll end up with edges that run into each other. That would mess it up. To copy my angles, you're going to need a tool, a gauge. And this is the prototype of the gauge. You'll need to build one of these, and it looks a little complicated, but I'll show you step by step how to build it. And this is made out of just plain old paper, but we'll make one out of stiffer paper. Use a file folder, or I happen to have this divider that's the same paper as a file folder. It's just white, and I like to work with it. That's what I'm going to use, and I'll do that right now, show you how it's done. And for tools, later we'll need a paintbrush for painting, but for tools we'll need a pencil and a protractor. In addition, it's useful to have a couple of triangles, or at least one with a right angle. We need to construct one right angle very carefully, and you can do that a lot of different ways, but the easiest way is with triangles. And then when we get the pattern drawn, we'll cut it out with scissors. So you need a pair of scissors. So we'll start. I'll show you how it's done. Take your sheet of paper in the landscape position, and in the upper left-hand corner, just put your protractor in the corner so that you have some paper around, all the way around it. You need to be able to draw points on there. And mark the location of the center. Just make a little mark there. Now draw a tiny little plus sign right on that mark. Doesn't have to be accurate, but the little plus sign should be something you can see, big enough to see, but small enough to isolate a point. And that's going to show through this little hole. That's why we're drawing it. Now you just draw a straight line sort of to the right of that, and you can just use this as a straight edge. Now here's a trick I learned in drawing class that I learned it in 1958, and I'm pretty sure they don't teach drawing anymore. People use computers, and so this is a skill that might be lost. But here's a trick. If you need to draw straight lines on paper that go through a given point exactly, the trick is to start with the given point. You start by putting your pencil point right on that mark, right in the center. You can get it located accurately because that's all you're paying attention to. Once you get it there, you just hold it. And then you push your straight edge up against it, and you see you can pivot around it. And if you're connecting with another point, you can pivot until it's lined up. But in our case now, we don't have to be accurate. We're just drawing one line to the right. Doesn't matter what angle. And it needs to be a little longer than the diameter of, the radius of this protractor. What I mean is that when you turn the protractor around so that that little plus that you made is right in the hole, there should be some of your lines sticking out. It should be that long. Now, that's what you line up exactly. So you can see through the protractor, you see down and line that right side of the protractor right up against that line, while that little plus sign stays right in the center of that round hole. And when it's there, you hold it down. Now you make a mark at 54 degrees. So you'll need to know these numbers. 54 is the first angle. So you see here's a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. There's 55. You back off one mark, it's 54. And you make a careful mark right on that 54 degree mark. Now you use a trick I told you but didn't show you. That is, you use this as a straight edge, or you could use a triangle. It doesn't matter what you use for a straight edge, but this first step is you put your pencil point right on that little plus sign, right in the center, and hold it right in the center. Then push your straight edge against it gently, don't dislodge it, and just kind of look and see about how far away the plus sign is from the straight edge. And then you look at this dot that you just drew, and you line up your straight edge so that it's just the same distance away as this first point. So if your lead is thicker, you'll be farther away, or if the straight edge has a thick edge, you might be farther away. If you have a real fine point, you'll be closer. So just match it, draw a line that goes a little past it, and you have a 54 degree angle. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to write 54 inside that. Now, you move on. The next one is 70 degrees. So for 70 degrees, you put that plus sign right in the hole. You line up the line exactly under it on the right. Keep the plus sign centered. And when it's lined up exactly, you look back and see what number you're looking at. You're looking at 70 degrees. So you go up 70 degrees and make a mark. And you do the same trick. You put the pencil point on the little plus sign. And you swing the straight edge around until it's lined up with that point. You draw your line. And you write your number 70 in here. Moving on, you go to 84 degrees. Line this up. Put the little plus sign right in the center. Now my little plus sign is getting louder all the time, but it's still visible to see where it is. 84 degrees. So there's 80, 85, back up 1 degree and we're at 84. Make a mark that's exactly right. And then connect that to the little plus sign. So you put your pencil on the plus sign, put the straight edge up against it, and you have to arrange the paper so you can see things. But mine's a little far away, so I'm going to rearrange it. Like that, there. Put that on the plus sign, put the straight edge against it, run this up until it's just lined up, and then draw. And then write the number in. This is 84 degrees. One more to go. 63. So you put the plus sign in the hole, you line up the line with the line, and you look at the number and it's 63. So you 40, 50, 60, 1, 2, 3. Wait, there's 65, back off 4, 3. My eyes make these little things run together and you get more than 2. Okay, so there's 63 right there. Squirt out a little more lead. And then connect that. And right down 63. Now, I could use a compass for this next thing, but I just used my protractor just to draw a circle around it, put that in the middle, just because it's a convenient size. This determines the size of this thing. You could make them bigger or smaller. That's big enough, so I just use this as a way to draw a circle. This is not critical. We're just going to cut this with the scissors. Now we need a glue strip on one of these or the other, because we're going to cut this out and glue it together. And the glue strip needs to start at the end of either this one or this one, doesn't matter. And I make them about 3/8 of an inch, or 5/16 wide. And then don't make it go all the way to the center. We're going to cut a hole in the end of it, in the center of it, because when we use it as a gauge, we'll want to use it sometimes when this is glued, and we don't want our glue sticking to the gauge. So we just leave this so we can cut it out easily later. So this we will cut out with the scissors. That's easy. Now we need to make a stiffener. If you just make one of these with those angles, it's not rigid. It can squish and deform. And that screws things up. You get deformed structures when you're done. So to hold it in exactly the right, it actually adds a 5th angle. And to hold it, we put a strut on the outside to keep this angle constant. And if this is constant, these will be constant. They don't have any more degree of freedom to move around. And the strut is just made, so it's as stiff as you can make paper without a lot of trouble. So we have one more drawing thing to do. And that is to make the line to show where the strut gets glued. And it gets glued between 54 and 70. So what we need, the strut needs to be perpendicular to this edge. So we just need to draw a line perpendicular to that edge. And the line wants to be as long as we can make it. And the easiest way to do that is with triangles. You choose the 30 with the, you have a right angle here. We want a line that's perpendicular to this one, so that, we could do that, but that only lines this up an inch or so, and it's not accurate. So the way you do that is you push the triangle up like this, so it has the full length of this line to line up with, and you can get it pretty exact. Hold it tight, then you put this one on the table, gently push it up against the bottom of it, and then transfer your weight. Instead of pushing hard on this one, you start pushing hard on this one and gently let this one up. So you get this one lined up to here, then let go of this. Now this one's loose, and this one's held fast. Now this one can slide, as long as you get the scissors out of the way, to wherever you want it. And you watch that, and you want to choose the longest line you can get. So it's going to end up, it doesn't have to be the longest, but the longer the better. So you just line it up, and let's just pick this point of intersection right here and say, okay, that's where I want it to be. Now you've got a perpendicular line. It's perpendicular to this one. It's as long as we can get it on the cord, and that's what we need. The only unfortunate thing is it's drawn on the wrong side of the paper, but we can deal with that. Now we're ready to cut out this part. Now we need to make the strut. And for the strut, you do the same kind of a thing. You just choose a point that's about here on your page. It's a little beyond this. And then using that as the center, you could draw a plus sign or just leave a dot, whatever's your favorite. And you put your pencil on the dot or the plus sign. Put your straight edge just straight up or so. That doesn't have to be accurate either. Just put it in wherever it goes. Now you make the angle. And the angle is 139 degrees. So you put your dot in the hole, line this right side up so that the line is right, the dot's still centered, and you look at the number, it's 139 degrees. That's 1 degree short of 140. And you see 140 over here, so 1 degree short of that is right there. And you use the trick of putting your pencil on the dot, holding it exact, putting your straight edge under it, and finding the mark that you made. There it is. So you swing the protractor or the straight edge to the mark, judge the distance, they're about the same distance apart, and draw. Now, this strut is a little long. Doesn't have to be that long, I don't think. The strut is going to be glued to this line, so it just needs to have this kind of a radius, about like that. So, since this is not critical, we can just do this by hand. Just draw a thing like that. Now this one needs a glue strip that runs the full length of this angle. So let's make a glue strip about like this. And then we'll cut a line to separate them like that. Now we cut them apart. Now we make a careful mark, a careful cut right into that point. Okay. Now we need to do some creasing. This is the easiest one to crease, so we'll crease this. Two of these straight edges works well. Get one under the flap you want to bend up. You put the other one exactly on the line that you want to crease to. Use this as a scoop to push it in against that other straight edge. And then bend it all the way over and smash it flat. Okay, now you can put it back in the other one. Now, I crease another one just for rigidity. So this one's not critical, doesn't matter where it is, but roughly there would be good, about half of it. Okay, that's done. Now this one. You just need to start creasing this all the way around. This might be a good place to stop because we have it flat and we need to draw this line on the other side of the paper, as I mentioned. So one way to do it, the way I did it, is to just use my pencil to mark on the back side, right on the corner, without seeing it. And this one we put right on the corner, so that's identified already. Now we need to draw a line connecting the little mark I just made and that corner. So there's the little mark I just made. Put my pencil on that. Get my straight edge up against it, and then just happen to have the corner we're aiming at right over a dark part of the newspaper to make it easy to see. Okay, now we have our perpendicular line on the back side. Okay, let's proceed with our folding. All right, ready to glue. We need to glue this one, and we need to glue these two. These will go right on the line we drew on the outside. Okay, I've glued the tabs together on this one, the new one, and I've cut out the nose of it, and it fits on this corner right here, and it fits very nicely like a glove. Leaves that corner exposed, all the edges line up. So it's ready to be used as a gauge until they up our new one. It won't have much use. It'll just line up one corner and then we're done. We'll just line the rest of them up to that one. Now the thing is, we need to count out 16 straws, cut them in half, get 32 half straws, and start gluing them together. First step in this gluing job is I'm going to make one 84-degree angle. That's one of these angles in here, and it's one of the major ones in the base. And so I've got an 84-degree angle drawn on this piece of paper. And what I'm going to do is just put a drop of glue in the end of each of two of these. One of them overflowing a little bit, and then join them together, sort of. Lay them on this paper so that I can see those angles. Put a weight on them to make sure they stay in the same plane. Now let that cool. I've been working at peeling this off of this paper. It's almost off. And then I'm going to trim the flash. Now, what I would typically do would be to complete this parallelogram and glue these together. But it just dawned on me that maybe I should build this complete corner. Stick the 84-degree V in there in its place. And then add these guys using this. That's what I'll do. And build one complete corner. So I'll fill this one up with glue. And not fill it up, but put a drop of glue in the end of it. Enough there, I don't think I'll have to. I want to pull it out so that, or I want to position it so that it's the the rim of each straw is just tangent. Boy, that worked nicely. I'm going to hold that for a little while to get it cool. Maybe I don't have to. Maybe I can just stick another one in there. I think I'll do that. Just complete the complete the thing just where it is. Look at that. No hands. And we're getting the things lined up perfectly. So, that's all the use we're going to make out of our gauge. From now on, every other edge will be aligned with one of these. So we'll just use the structure we've already built and build the whole thing out. I'll show you how we do it as we go, but we won't be using the gauge anymore. This is the end of it. So I'm pleased and surprised at how nice that went. And you'll be the first to know. I'm going to let it cool completely though, so it's all rigid before I begin working on it. And by having cut that hole out of the middle of it, there will be no problem separating it from my jig. Okay, let's let it cool. That worked a lot better than I had imagined. That means I can reuse this and make multiple hypercubes if they come out nicely. And this joint is almost perfect. It's got a little dent in top that I can put a drop of glue on there and make it nice and round. And this, the rest of it sort of settled into a really good paintable shape. I think I'll put a little drop of glue on there now. Just while I'm thinking about it. And the theory of having them all of the rims be tangent is that the axis of each straw, the thin line that runs right up the middle of each straw, looks to me like they all intersect at a point in the middle of the joint, which is exactly what I want. I mean, this is a little off, but not bad. All right, now we proceed to build the whole hypercube, and we don't need any jigs or fixtures. Well, we need jigs, but we don't need any more measurements. So the strategy is going to be to take them, any incomplete parallelogram that can lay on the table by having, so that would be this one, this one, this one, and this one. We got 4 of them. We just start with one, clamp it down so that it's flat on the table, have a flat place in front of us we can work, and then we're going to just hook 2 of these to those ends. That'll make a parallelogram, and since it's a triangle, these are stationary, can only go one way, and so I'm going to apply a little glue to the end of this guy. this guy. Oops, a little messy. Lay that down there. I'll do the same thing here. And I'm going to do this end of this one. Start laying down. Now get them to touch. It's nice that this stuff is workable for a while. I want these to all be in the same plane, so I'm going to weight this just to make sure that it stays at the level of the tabletop, and we'll let those cool. I think it's cool enough, it just has to hold so it stays rigid. Now, newspaper is pretty good for this because it tears easy. I can get under it. So we just do that. We go into production mode here. I think I'm going to fill these ends first. And then clamp it down. Spilled some glue. I'm going to use that. Flatten that. Let that cool. All right, next we'll do this one. Now, as I'm positioning these corners, I'm making sure that the the ones that join are in the same plane. So this one coming down wasn't quite lined up with this one I'm putting in, so I just push it over and make sure it's lined up with that one. And then the table makes sure it's lined up with this one. But we want all these parallelograms to be in a complete plane. So you just have to pay attention as you go. You get some room to work with that glue, or some time to work. Now, while this one is still drying, I'm going to begin building the inside. I'm going to put one here, and then later, when this is firm, then I'll complete this parallelogram right here that's on the inside. We have two on the inside, 2 points, and show you how I begin building that up. I'll do this by eyeball, and just put a little drop of glue here, a drop of glue on the end of it, and then I'm going to use this block of wood to align it. So I just lean it up against the block of wood, and I can see that it needs to be in further, so I can steer it. So I can sight with any of the other 3 that are parallel to this one. And you should do multiples because, whoops. And I control that just with the angle of this block. Okay, so that's lined up with this one nicely. It isn't nicely with this one. This one's going to go this way. And now we got to do this one different. Our block of wood is spanning, there it is, hopping around on me, so I'll use one that stays where. Check, make sure this is nice and tangent, and it is. And it's parallel to the guy in the back. Looks pretty good here. Maybe it could come this way a little bit. Now, it's a little early to test here, but we can do it anyway. there'll be a little flexibility in that, so when we go to put these cross pieces in, we'll be able to bend it and fit. And this doesn't have to be completely cool to do that. And I think we can start doing it right now. This one's not very good. I didn't get that joint. I got a little twist in this parallelogram. Well, I'm not really happy with that. This joint is too loose. This edge should be shoved in and down a little bit. Maybe, I don't know if I can melt the glue that's holding just that one strut or not. Put a block of rubber glue in there, see if that does loosen it. Yeah, loosened it. So now I could shove it in a little further and get it a little more parallel to the one in the back. Still not perfect, but better. Okay, so we have built one interior point, but it's not complete. It needs another one coming this way. So let's complete this top parallelogram and then connect up that point. So clamp this down. Come on. It's not cool, but it's firm enough that we can shove this guy in there. see this one isn't exactly parallel to the others, but there's not much we can do about it. I don't think we can distort anything to fix it. So what we'll do is just declare that's perspective. As you know, perspective makes things in the distance smaller than in the foreground. It makes parallel lines look like they're going to meet rather than be parallel. And we have that effect in 3 dimensions. I'm sure it's even more profound in 4 dimensions. So we'll call that perspective. We won't call it an error. It's probably because my tubes are not all exactly the same length. And I'm not getting all my joints exactly tangent. But what we're getting is close enough. All right, I just finished gluing in the last 2 or 3 edges. And I guess I'm happy. I'm happy I'm done with it. Now, but I see that I didn't quite get the angles right. We do have a fairly wide separation of these 2 points in the middle, but they're sure not separated much in these 2 planes. But they don't collide, barely, and they work. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit and then begin painting. Paint it in stripes. That's what we've been shooting for all along, and I'm glad I'm this far. So let me get to work on cleaning and painting. We'll see the results. It's considerably smaller, but this is a nice handy size. Before we start painting, let me explain my approach. In my earlier attempts at painting, I ran into a problem that I didn't quite solve, but I think I have a solution that'll work, and that's what we're going to try. The problem is that you need 3 stripes on each edge, and just thinking about it, ideally you would think, well, though it would be nice to have those distributed 120 degrees each around the cylinder or around the stripe. And if you use these triangular edges like I did, those are nicely divided into 120 degree facets. Well, as it turns out, it's an extremely difficult problem that I didn't solve, to figure out how to align those, assuming that you're going to use these 120 degree facets, to align these facets so that they present an edge pretty much straight on to each of 3 special viewpoints. And they're not arbitrary viewpoints. This particular edge has exactly 3 specific viewpoints that we need to color it to match. This has 3, but they're different from these. No 2 are the same. So all of the viewpoints are different, and so the question is, can you orient these correctly? I didn't figure out a way to do it. I didn't even figure out a way to figure out how to do it. Now, when I painted round ones, I just painted, these are made out of wood, and I just painted a stripe in the front that I could see. I'd turn it to another one and I'd paint the color that I could see on that one and so on. And by the time I got all around, there were inconsistencies. There were places I should paint red and it was already blue, or things like that. So the new approach is going to hopefully solve that problem. There isn't any doubt that there's a band that we should paint. But it's not going to be 120 degrees. It might be 180 degrees on one side. You paint the whole thing one color, and then the other side gets split 90 degrees one color and 90 degrees the third color. So what those splits are, I don't know. And so the strategy is going to be this. We're going to paint in 2 stages. And the stage will be that we'll choose a point of view, like maybe looking down this edge right here. And when we do that, that presents a clear cube that should be colored in that color. And that's the one that is poking out at us. So it would be a cube that has these 3 edges, and then all the lines parallel to those 3 that make up this cube that goes in here. It does not include this one that lines up to our eye. So that cube is going to be clear. We'll choose this point, and what we're going to do is just paint a thin stripe of the color we want. Well, first of all, we'll paint this vertex that color, so that all of these vertices that are on the points of view will have a color that matches the cube behind them. So paint that. We'll just paint a thin stripe right in the middle of each of these 12 edges that make up that cube. That's it. Then we'll move on to a different color. And so, then we'll finish with all the colors. So we'll be left with just a single stripe for each color on each edge. And then we'll go into phase 2, where we'll fill in the space between the 2 stripes. So if there's a stripe here, say this is red, white, and blue. There's a red stripe, a white stripe, and a blue stripe. What we'll do is we'll enlarge the red stripe so that it gets halfway to the white stripe and halfway to the blue stripe, whatever that halfway distance is. And we just judge that by our eyeball. We'll look at it so we can see both colors. We'll see a line between them. I mean, just imagine a line between them, and we'll paint up to that line. I thought about using masking tape for that, but I calculated it will take about 200 strips of masking tape. It takes 192 strips of masking tape, and a lot of it is inside where it's going to be hard to handle, so rule that out. Just do it by eye. And so if you're enlarging the white stripe, you just paint it to halfway to the red, halfway to the blue, and you're done. Then when you get to the blue, you got to go halfway to the white. Well, not anymore. You go right up to the white, because we already took the white to the halfway mark. So you just expand each of the colors so that it just meets the other colors that are adjacent to it halfway. And then we should be done. That should do the job. I haven't done that yet, so we'll start now, and you can see the result when it comes out. Well, I'm done with pass number 1 on painting. It's not quite dry, but it's dry enough to handle. And as you can see, some of them came out pretty nice, like the blue, the green, I think, came out pretty nice. But some of them, there wasn't much of a strip for that color to take. White, for example, well, white had trouble with, it shares too much of this edge with blue and with green. And as it turns out, it looks to me like there's some of these edges that have just a narrow strip, maybe 10 or 20 degrees for their color, and then 150 or more degrees for each of the other 2 colors. Because if you look inside of it, you can see there's big bunches of it that didn't get colored. But you look on this side and there are three colors there, but they're all crowded together. So I'm going to do what I said. I'm going to split the difference, paint it all, and see what I get. And then I also learned another disappointment is that some of these colors don't cover the pattern in the straw well at all. Orange and yellow and even the red. I'm surprised how the color shows through. Green and blue, the color just really covered it nicely, but I suppose that's because this underlying green has got green and blue in it. So let me finish coloring it and I'll make some observations when I'm done. Now what I'm going to do, since you don't have this in your hand to manipulate, and you won't have until you build one like it, the best you can do now, since you can only see a 2D image of this 3D structure on your TV screen or your computer screen, I'm going to show you the Hypercube in 8 different orientations. So one of the orientations should show you a white Hypercube. Now that would be this orientation right here. Now I may have to move it a little bit for you to see the white on the cube, but there is a cube outlined in white that you should be able to see. You can pause the video and study it if you want. Then there's a pink one, and the pink one is in this orientation. You should be able to see a pink Hypercube. Then in this orientation you should be able to see yellow. And here you should be able to see orange. And next is brown. You should be able to see brown if I aim it at you like this. See a brown cube. Then the blue one. Blue, pretty outstanding, so you should be able to see the blue cube. Next is green. That should show you the green one. Finally is red. Not really happy with this red color, but that's what we got. Now, as it turns out, these stripes can't be just spaced 120 degrees apart around the tube, just because of the way that the cubes that they participate in are aligned or positioned. So in some cases you have the back side is colored broadly and the front side is just a narrow strip. White got that treatment. Now there's one flaw, you might call it, in this structure. It's pleasing to have these two center points separated, and they are pretty nicely separated except in this direction. They're pretty close. I think the thing that needs to be adjusted is that dihedral angle, and I built this gauge with an adjustment for the dihedral angle, and you can clamp it at whatever angle you want with a clothespin. And I've made this set of 4 to fit that, but I haven't yet and probably won't complete a hypercube with this. So that's it for this video. I thank you for watching. I hope you try making your own hypercube and succeed at it. I think you'll enjoy it and find it to be useful. So until next time, again, thanks for watching.